Welcome back everybody to my channel. Today we're going to be making a bath caddy so you guys can treat yourselves. Okay guys, I'm starting with some white maple that I ran through a planer and a joiner to get square. I cut it to length and started gluing the pieces together and clamping them together to make the base of the board. Once the glue's set, I went on to make the handles of the same type of wood. Made a design previously before and I really liked it, so I decided to keep that design for these handles. It's going to be kind of a cat face that turns into a handle. So I designed these cat face handles before for another bath caddy that I made for my wife. I really liked how the handle came out, so I decided to make another one. I kind of rounded the design a little bit for this, and you'll see me cutting it to length and then using the scroll saw to cut the shapes. As I'm cutting the shapes of the handle, you see that I cut the midsection there, and I actually liked that the midsection actually came out almost like a cat shape, so I'm probably going to save that little piece for a future Christmas ornament design that I have in mind. After I glued the handle, I moved forward with starting to carve a lot of the edges and a lot of the deeper recesses of the cat face for the handles. Moving across the whole piece, I didn't want to make the face too deep, but also I wanted to give it a nice rounded shape, slowly rounding off the areas for the ears and what would be the cheeks, I guess. As I'm carving the handles and moving in between both handles, I'm also trying to keep them as similar as possible, try to keep them as symmetrical as possible. This is work that's being done by hand. Try my best to make sure everything matches. After doing some initial rough carving, I went through with my Dremel and my most aggressive bit and started smoothing out those areas, constantly checking the grip and the size, keeping in mind the size of the overall handle and making sure that it fits comfortably in your hands. And also realizing that someone like my wife would probably be using this, so making sure that the handles are small enough so that they don't just fit my hands in particular, but smaller hands as well. After doing some power carving and getting a good shape down and a good feel for my hands, I moved back and forth with the chisels to really tighten up the details and get some sharp, clean edges on there, along with working on the backing of the phone stand and putting matching details on that as well. Now I'm doing some measuring, making sure the handles are centered on the board, also centering the phone stand to the board, and also making the measurements for the wine glass holder as well. After I made the cut for the wine glass, and now I am routing the edges to give it a nice clean look, making slight adjustments for the wine glass holder so that the wine glass sits upright. Afterwards, I proceeded to make the holes for the handles. Arguably one of the hardest parts for me in this project, as the holes need to be as precise as possible to leave very little gap in the board and the handle. Next, I level a board to the bath caddy, making sure it's completely square to the board, and then I route the groove for the phone holder. After routing the groove, I start with the design of the board. I make a few drawings, some of which I actually change later on. I didn't really like how they looked. A lot of these that I'm darkening up and cleaning up, I do actually keep. I had a bunch of different designs to different parts of the board. I found some little cat characters online. I decided to replicate the style. I added a few different designs across the whole board that you'll see later in their entirety. After finishing the design and locking it in for what I want, I then proceed to burn the designs on the handles, trying to be as slow and precise as possible, making sure I follow the lines as accurately as I can and as evenly as possible. I try to take it nice and slow with the detail work on the face, making sure I try not to make any mistakes if possible. Like I said, taking it nice and slow and really trying to be as precise as possible. Once I finish up the designs, and as you can see at the end there, I changed the first drawing I made to the one that you see me burning. I then use a pencil, do a quick coat on the whole board, and then I sand it down just so I make sure I have a nice even sanding across the whole board. I then proceed to do sanding on the handles using my random orbit sander as well as just regular old sandpaper. I even wrap a little bit of sandpaper in a pencil to kind of get and match some of the grooves. Afterwards, I use a damp cloth, and once I wipe off the excess sandust, I check for roughness or any edges that particles that may stick up from the moisture. I then go back and resand those down again really quickly. After sanding, I then get ready to hammer the handles in place. I use a little bit of glue, then hammer them all the way in place to where their final location is going to be. Once I hammer them in place, I then use a little bit of sawdust and glue and clean up the gaps in between the board and the handles. I then do that for the second handle. You see that the handles actually protrude out of the bottom of the board. Later you'll see this is actually a lock to keep the board in place because the board doesn't protrude very far off the edge of the bathtub. This is just so that the board will not slip into the tub. Afterwards, I then glue the back of the phone stand. I make sure the back of the phone stand is flush with the back of the board. After that, I seal the whole board with the lacquer just to make sure it doesn't take on any water because it's going to be in a very high humidity area. Now, as you can see, the locks on the bottom of the board just so that the board doesn't slip into the tub with you. And that's it. This is the board completely done. You see all the details there. Everything is burned on. The board is actually sealed now, so it won't let in any moisture. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to subscribe and like the video. And remember guys, treat yourself.